Welcome to the Compact Disasters podcast from compactdisasters.com, the show where we explore natural and human-made disasters from around the world. This is episode 47, the Boeing 737 MAX crashes. The Boeing 737 MAX was supposed to be a triumph, a sleek, fuel-efficient upgrade to Boeing's best-selling aircraft. But instead, it became the centerpiece of a modern aviation scandal. 2 fatal crashes, hundreds dead, a global grounding, and the uncovering of a disturbing story about what happens when speed and cost-cutting take priority over safety. Let's take it from the beginning. In the early 2010s, Boeing was in a race. Airbus had launched the A320neo, a new version of its single-aisle jet, equipped with larger, more efficient engines. Airlines were eager to reduce fuel costs, and orders for the Airbus poured in. Boeing had a choice: either design an entirely new aircraft, which could take up to a decade, or modify their existing 737, a design that dates back to the 1960s. They chose the latter. The result was the Boeing 737 MAX. It looked like a regular 737, but there was one significant difference: the engines. The new engines were significantly larger and more fuel-efficient. To accommodate their size, Boeing had to move them further forward and higher up on the wings. This changed the plane's aerodynamics, especially during steep climbs. To counteract this change and make the aircraft feel similar to older 737s, Boeing created a software system called MCAS, the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System. If the plane's sensors detected that it was climbing too steeply, MCAS would automatically push the nose down to prevent a stall. On paper, it was a clever workaround, but a decision was made that would prove to be deadly. Boeing chose not to highlight MCAS to pilots. It didn't appear prominently in training materials, and no additional simulator time was required. This helped Boeing market the MAX as just another 737, something that would save airlines money on retraining. That decision would come back to haunt them. On the 29th of October 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 took off from Jakarta, Indonesia. The aircraft was a Boeing 737 MAX and was only a few months old. But minutes after takeoff, the plane began behaving strangely. The nose dipped sharply. The pilots pulled it up. The nose dipped again. The pilots were in a battle for control. Unbeknownst to them, a faulty sensor was feeding incorrect data to the MCAS system, which was convinced the aircraft was climbing at a dangerous angle. The system activated repeatedly, pushing the nose down again and again. The crew was unfamiliar with MCAS. They didn't know how to turn it off, and they didn't have enough time to figure it out. The plane plunged into the sea. All 189 people on board were killed. The world took notice, but Boeing downplayed the crash. They said it was an isolated incident. They didn't ground the aircraft. They didn't rush out major updates. Behind the scenes, however, investigators were starting to worry. Then 5 months later, it happened again. On the 10th of March 2019, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 departed Addis Ababa. It was another brand new 737 MAX. And just like Lion Air, the plane started acting erratically within minutes of takeoff. Again, MCAS had activated based on faulty data. Again, the pilots struggled against the system, and again, the result was catastrophic. The aircraft crashed 6 minutes after takeoff, killing all 157 people on board. With 2 nearly identical crashes in such a short span, the global response was swift. Country after country grounded the 737 MAX. Airlines pulled it from service. Even the United States, which had resisted for days, eventually gave in and grounded the aircraft. The MAX was grounded worldwide for nearly 2 years. It was the longest grounding of a commercial aircraft in US aviation history. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a disturbing pattern. Boeing had made a series of choices that prioritized getting the MAX to market over ensuring it was truly safe. MCAS had been quietly installed, relying on a single angle of attack sensor with no backup. The software could take control of the aircraft with minimal pilot awareness, and Boeing had actively resisted including MCAS in pilot training. Internal messages later revealed that some Boeing employees had expressed concerns about MCAS long before the crashes. But those warnings were brushed aside. The focus had been on speed and cost, not caution. Boeing faced lawsuits from victims' families. They were dragged before Congress. The FAA and other aviation regulators were heavily criticized for allowing Boeing to effectively self-certify parts of the MAX's design. In 2021, Boeing reached a deal with the US Department of Justice. They agreed to pay billions in fines and compensation. They also admitted to misleading regulators, but no executives were personally charged. For many, the punishment didn't feel like enough. Nevertheless, Boeing was compelled to make adjustments. The MCAS system was redesigned. It could no longer activate repeatedly without pilot input, and it now relied on multiple sensors for input. Pilots were finally trained on the system, and simulator time became mandatory. By late 2020, the FAA cleared the MAX to fly again, and airlines began reintroducing it into service. But the damage to Boeing's reputation was done. What had been their most successful aircraft line was now tainted by tragedy. And the fallout continued. In 2024, a separate incident involving a panel blowout on a 737 MAX made headlines once again. Although no one was injured, it reminded the public that scrutiny of Boeing wasn't going away. The legacy of the 737 MAX crashes is not just about software. It's about a deeper cultural problem inside one of the world's biggest aerospace companies. It's about a breakdown in communication, in oversight, and in basic trust. The aircraft has now met safety standards and returned to the skies. But for the families of the 346 victims, no amount of engineering fixes can undo what happened. The story of the 737 MAX is a warning that even in industries built on precision and caution, when profit takes precedence over safety, the results can be deadly. And that lesson is written not just in data reports and safety manuals, but in the lives that were lost, the questions that remain, and the renewed global commitment to never let it happen again. I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Compact Disasters podcast from compactdisasters.com. If you did, why not leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts? And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. If you would like to support us more directly, please consider buying us a coffee. Head on over to compacthistories.com/disaster coffee to see how. Also, please check out our other Compact podcasts. You will find them all at compacthistories.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.